Welcome everyone into today's very lively discussion. I am Leah Laxtons. I am going to be your MC for today. I'm a mission-driven event specialist working across a variety of industries, including sustainable construction, agriculture, music, public safety, just to name a few. And my passion is creating inspired human connections, which I think is what we're going to get to today. So I'm very honored to facilitate these conversations that are happening. EarthX Future Fields' mission is to accelerate the transition to regenerative agriculture to build a more abundant and resilient food system and textiles industry for generations to come. Certainly something we can all be passionate about. So I want to jump into our very first panel today, the impact of agriculture on healthcare. And I have some very accomplished people here to introduce to you. So we have Talbott Howard, the COO and director of Electro Aeration. He wants to redefine our current view of water as a monolithic compound and demonstrate how we can break it down. For 20 years, he's been exploring alternative energy as an investor, project leader, developer, integrator, and now inventor. And Howard's also brought with him some water that we get to test out today. So if you're thirsty, we have it right over here for you to check out. And he's aimed to help address climate change and the effects of industrial hazards for intergoverned agencies, industry, and communities lacking ready-made solutions for answering uncertain times. We also have Merlin Yockstick with us, who is the executive producer of Farm Hero. He's an educator, publisher, and founder of Blue Planet Science Group, co-founder of Blue Planet Regen X Network, which is a 501c3, founder of Farm Hero Media, and executive producer of Farm Hero, which is a television and social media campaign created to educate, entertain, and empower farmers, ranchers, and consumers in participating in regenerative agriculture and Food RX, food as medicine. So, and moderating our panel today is the amazing Bernadette Fiaschetti. She is the host and co-founder of One Life Radio and also co-founder of Wingstop. She's a well-known entrepreneur, health and wellness expert, animal advocate, host of the One Life Radio podcast. She began her career as a business owner by co-creating Pizza Patron and Wingstop restaurant concepts, defining the brands and building the businesses from the ground up. Today, both are franchised with hundreds of locations worldwide. I think I ate at one a few weeks ago. It's still amazing. And she continues to invest her time, energy, and assets into One Life Radio podcast, which educates America on the latest holistic and alternative health news with acclaimed doctors, New York Times best-selling authors, and world-renowned scientists. She exposes the truth, never influenced by big pharma, big food, big chemical, or big agriculture. She's also involved in many North Texas philanthropic organizations with an emphasis on causes related to the needs of children and animals. And her passion is to educate America is contagiously positive, which I think you'll see from this panel discussion. So without further ado, I'll kick it over to y'all to talk about agriculture and healthcare.
Thank you so much. Oh, there you go. Okay. Welcome, everyone. I wanted to give a special thanks to Trammell Crow and Dalton O'Neill for giving all of us the opportunity to be here today and talk about these very important topics and the future fields of advancing agriculture. We're going to start with Merlin, and we're going to talk about the soil. So let's do it. Why is the soil so very important, Merlin?
Well, because it really is what drives everything that we are doing on the planet. We would not be here as human beings if it were not for the soil and a little bit of water, as Talbott knows. But you put those two together and you can grow plants, you can grow food. And so I'm from the state of Iowa. And the reason I bring that up is because, as I tell all of our Iowans, we are the best of the worst. We have done an incredible job at destroying our greatest asset, which is soil in Iowa. Like it or not, industrial ag, which is what we're trying to transition away from, got started in Iowa with hybrid seed core development. back in the 20s and 30s, and I work very closely with the World Food Prize that celebrates every year the Green Revolution, which has to be completely greened up again, taken to another level. But anyway, I know soil, and the reason I'm back in Iowa, I left Iowa right out of college and moved to Boulder, Colorado. So if any of you have been to Boulder, you know what Boulder is about. It's pretty progressive, and some people think is La La Land. But anyway, I started going back to Iowa around 2010 with the World Business Council and discovered a state that I could not recognize, because I did grow up on a small family farm in a small community back when all food was organic. And now we have to search to try and find organic food, and that is not a good thing. It's more expensive, as we know, when we need to find a way to get food less expensive. So anyway, back to your question, Bern, in terms of why is soil so important. It is why we are here, as I said. And so I'll just kind of leave it with that, and I'll let...
I'm going to take it even further. I'm going to take it a little deep. I'm going to take it a little deeper. No pun intended. We're going to take a little deeper here. But you know, Merlin, the global food system is sick, and almost everyone knows it. And timing is everything. As my shirt says, it's time, right? Which is another question I'll bring up after. But so how is agriculture impacting healthcare?
Well, here again, back to the food. If you have sick food, guess what? You end up with sick people. You end up with sick animals that we end up eating and getting sicker. So it's really, as we know, there is no silver bullet, but if there is a silver bullet, it would be agriculture. Yeah. And here again, what we have transitioned into in agriculture, it's big business. It's about selling chemistry. I like to, razz the farmers back in Iowa a little bit, and sometime when I'm speaking, I ask, how many of you put poison on your food? And of course, nobody raises their hands. And then I ask, well, how many of you put poison on your food so you can grow more of it? And then usually a few people will raise their hands because they know that's what they're doing. But we have gotten so far away from nature in our agricultural process, which is why we've destroyed the soil. I mean, you can't put poison on the soil and expect all of that microbial life to live and survive. So what regenerative ag is about ultimately is about getting back to nature. And believe it or not, there are companies out there that say you need 0 pesticides, 0 insecticides, 0 fungicides if you just work with nature. But to work with nature, you have to wake up and acknowledge the carbon cycle within nature. And that's what we're really all made up of. And what the soil is about is carbon. So we're going to go back to carbon, and I think back to the beginning that started some 10,000 years ago. And if we do it right, I actually am hopeful that we can turn this spaceship around called Earth and come together and do some things differently than what we're doing. So yeah. Hopefully I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. And so to elaborate a little more, what are some of the pros and cons of different farming practices? What are we doing wrong?
Just about everything. And I don't, I'm not pointing at farmers. I love the Iowa farmers because they're doing the best they can with what information they've been told that quite frankly came from our academic institutions in the state and around the country. And so they're hooked into a system that is not sustainable, as we know. But there are a bunch, and that's why we started Farm Hero, is to tell the stories of farmers that have transitioned away from industrial ag and are actually starting to make money because they don't have to spend nearly as much money on input costs, and some of the natural remedies are very inexpensive for farmers to put on their soil. So hopefully I answered your question. And one other thing is, since I mentioned Farm Hero, I'm not the only executive producer. I've got a couple of other partners that I won't mention right now. But anyway, we started this a little over a year ago. Well, actually, it was a year ago to this month. when we started going across the country, and we filmed in 8 states, 10 different farms that are now being shown on EarthX. Probably no accident that we ended up starting with EarthX. And so that's what Farm Heroes is all about, but we're going to tell their stories. And this year, with the new filming programs that we're putting together, we're going to be expanding upon that. So anyway, happy to be a part of Farm Hero and what my partners and I have put together, and happy to be on EarthX TV.
Yeah, it's amazing. You guys have done some tremendous work, both of you. And so actually, Marie came up with this question last night when we were preparing for today. She's been to a vertical farming plant here in North Texas. I don't remember exactly where it was. I didn't go on the tour. But how do plants how do they develop nutrients with no soil? And what are your thoughts on vertical farming?
Not good.
Really?
And I hope I'm not stepping on anybody's toes here.
They do use soil in the pods in every one of those. I know all about that place. It's
Oh.
called Eden Green.
Yeah, that's
I helped them in the beginning with all their security.
interesting.
Who is they?
Okay.
Who's they? Eden Green.
Eden Green is the company.
Again, Eden Green
Yeah.
is the name of the
Okay.
farm. I know it well.
Well, maybe we should have him up here answering this question. But yeah, no, I appreciate that input because my perspective, and I'm not saying I have this all figured out, but what the ones that I've worked with, they have anywhere from 10 to 20 different chemicals that they put back in. And so they don't have access to the roughly 90 different elements that I'm told is in the soil. So you may have figured out how to do that.
They don't use any chemicals. Everything is hydroponics, and they use a mineral water system that is very healthy.
Interesting.
Okay, cool. That's
Well-
good to hear. And so
And so we have to have conversations like this, right? In order to good communication, produces resolve and understanding. And so these are the kind of conversations that we need to have as a nation to understand one another. So there's no misunderstanding or misinformation, disinformation, whatever they're calling it right now. But yeah, I think that it's wonderful that this conversation happened with you.
Yeah.
Use Dalton's water to them because I think his water would really help them with the growth. So.
Wow.
Let's finish this interview and then we'll get through
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So,
yeah, thank you. And love to talk to you some more because you may know some things that I haven't been introduced to. And like you say, this is the kind of conversations that we have because no one of us is going to figure this out or has it all figured out. So
difficult conversations give resolve,
Yep.
resolution to problems.
Yep.
Yeah. And so I'm wearing the T-shirt. It's time. What's it time for, Merlin? What do you think it's time for?
well, a revolution combined with a renaissance, combined with all new mindsets about how we live our lives, lead our organizations, and turn our planet around to be healthy, sustainable, with a lot of different technologies that are coming together.
Mm-hmm. And Talbott, what do you think it's time for?
You know, building a knowledge base where people can ask questions but find solutions, connecting the future of knowledge into innovation, allowing kids to be able to find that freedom, but actually find out what they don't know. Mm-hmm. You know, the problem here, in my opinion, is that we don't know what we don't know, and the education system is not properly providing that foundation or exposure to it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you know, last night when we were meeting one another for the first time in the little restaurant downstairs, you were talking quite passionately about community and about the importance of women being a part of this movement, this environmental movement. Would you like to speak on that?
Well, I am happy to because I spoke about it at a breakfast, and I got swarmed by people that said, "Hey, I just heard what you said, and I'm on board with what you're saying." Yeah, the bottom line is that a lot of good old boy white guys like me who have been leading the show, we do need to step aside and be open, and we need to balance the patriarchal societies and leadership and government that we all live in with the wisdom that women bring to the table. And if we don't do that, I think we're toast, because I'm not sure my generation is going to live long enough to see the light and turn things around. Not that I'm against men and their thoughts. They have to be equally involved, but it needs to be an equal process and not something that is dominated just by the male perspective of things. And women are making their strides. There's more of them sitting on boards, and there's more CEOs than ever before. But at the Women's Summit yesterday, I suggested and got applause, believe it or not, because I was one of 5 men in the women's room of about 50 or 60. But anyway, women are definitely stepping up, and we need to do more of that, and they're more nurturing than what we tend to be. We're protectors. Thank God we do the right things, most of the right things for the right reasons. But anyway, we need to balance our planet. That's what nature does on its own, and women can help do that, and they need to help do that. And I'm inviting every woman, especially young girls. I sat in on a very passionate presentation by a bunch of young girls that want to do what all women are trying to do.
Well, it's funny that you use the word balance, because that's what I was thinking. You know, all this, we need both. We need both sexes to have balance, because each one brings a different color to the table, a different thought process, and they're all important. But thank you so much for all of that.
From that, let me just say, in addition to women needing to be involved, somebody who really understands water needs to be involved, because here again, soil and water is what makes it all happen. So I've just gotten to know Talbott, and I'm amazed with some of the technology that he's doing that I actually understand. So Talbott, I've been talking too much. It's now time for you to take over.
All right, Talbott, Howard, so honored that you're here, as I said. What's the most important thing in the universe?
Well, in reading this room here, I'd have to say vertical farming today. No, but it's what vertical farming actually contributes, developing a tree. Okay, I would say a tree in our universe is the most important thing.
So my bumper sticker that says trees, I just forgot.
Well, I mean,
trees are everything.
Let's just look at the universe. If you wanted to find a planet that was sustainable and it had the perfect conditions, well, the first thing you're going to look for is a tree, because it's able to produce oxygen.
Yeah.
And the oxygen is the key element to life.
Yeah.
Without oxygen, nothing exists. So it provides the balance and the organization of how do we produce food. You know, it actually sets the photosynthesis of how do we capture the carbon, the pollution, and the problems that deal with population. So that is the most important thing in my universe, because I live on planet Earth. I know some people are looking to go to Mars in the future, but they're going to be looking for a tree there, too.
So trees are the answer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, we're here in Texas, so we're probably supposed to say oil and gas is the most important thing.
Or the sun's pretty important too. But so what is Electro Aeration, and what does it do, Talbott?
Electro aeration is a fundamental change in the process that we call electrolysis, where you're breaking down water into its parts, oxygen and hydrogen. We have come up with a new way that is able to do it with minimal energy and provide it on all variations of water, even distilled water, where we're able to split it. And when I'm saying low cost, this is something that can be powered in the future, I see, by a cell phone signal, okay, or magnetic energy that's right there in its point, called 0 point. Today, we're doing it off solar without a battery or an inverter, something that's very needed, where if you needed to clean water in a third world such as Africa, we're working out of Cape Town now to deploy these systems so it can start to provide clean water. But we're fundamentally changing the definition of electrolysis in the history books.
Wow. Yeah, my mind went to the story you were telling, Talbott and I, about even this technology even being able to make animals grow larger. which I know I'm getting a little ahead of us here, our plan, but that just popped into my head, and it's fascinating. The science is absolutely fascinating.
I see water's a fundamental component to three things in life that we all need. And if we could build an economy around these three things, what do we need? Fuel, food, health. What else on the planet do we build economies around? Water is the essential part for the development of all three of those.
So how does the Electro aeration increase agriculture?
Addressing agriculture and looking at the process of how do you effectively use water. In vertical farming, it's about delivering the water, or in pivot head farming, where you're out there delivering the water, is does it travel faster? Does it actually absorb into the roots faster? Does it go up the stems and get to the leaves faster? And the only way to do that is to do what we're doing. We're structuring the water and putting a charge, an electron, that allows those minerals to actually travel faster with the water. So if you could think about the days when plants and animals were so big, okay, the millions of years ago, or at least 10,000 years ago, they were much bigger. Why? Because there was more dissolved oxygen in the water itself. So,
Like dinosaurs.
yeah, like dinosaurs.
That was a little more than 10,000 years ago.
Well,
but
I'm thinking of the dire wolf. The dire wolf was 6 feet tall, and they just let it out, and it existed 10 years ago, and people are challenging, saying, hey, is it going to be 6 feet tall again? I'm like, no, there's not enough dissolved oxygen today to make it grow that tall. So that's the reason I said 10,000. I know dinosaurs are 10 millions of years ago. But it provides the addressing of how do we effectively get the water structured to each particular crop. So we can go into the weeds with that, but let's focus on the forest.
Well, let's go to this. What about addressing agricultural pollution? Does AE help with that? Or
That's the reason.
Sorry.
That's the huge part of declining agriculture, particularly with regenerative, is that the soil is stressed. It's been abused over and over and over, and chemicals and pesticides and fertilizers. And the downstream pollution that happens that we're all seeing today is red tide, okay, in the Gulf of Mexico. Or like you were saying in your neighborhood where you're seeing these funguses grow and bloom. That is the downstream issue of agriculture. And what happens there is that these chemical cocktails are in water. It goes from liquid back into air. And as these cocktails of chemicals that are in the water, which is actually a low grade of cyanide, if you see the red tide, that is cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria is what cyanide comes from. So when it goes back into its evaporative state and goes back into the clouds and rains back down on us, that's where acid rain comes from. So agriculture and how we can actually start to reduce the need and actually for pesticides and fertilizers will have a greater impact. Our technology degradates, it separates. So when it comes in contact with our electrolysis, it separates those bad carbon chains back to the basis of what you call formic acid. That's an ant. That's the oldest form of carbon on the planet. So we separate the bad like a cancer cell, making the pesticides go back to its natural form, which is carbon, and disassociate it and put it back into the environment. So that helps the pollution.
you know what? This is starting to sound like magic. I think we need to call this guy Merlin. Or Merlin 2, or whatever.
Give me a little Dutch hat.
Yeah, but anyway.
Well, so what are the challenges of scaling this innovation?
Building the systems and the maintenance. Okay, so we're fundamentally looking at how do we address the pollution fast enough. So my philosophy is just like the Three Rivers Dam in China, the founder, I believe his last name was Sun, hundreds of years ago said, hey, we're going to do the largest water infrastructure on the planet to supply the needs for China. Well, I foresee that if we put this technology out where the point source of the pollution's beginning, upstream, where the river and the farmers have these little keys and all the runoff comes out to the rivers. It's going to address the problems that start to help hurt the ecosystems down in the Gulf or anywhere. So getting the public involved and getting the policy involved to address this problem where the solution needs to be up front at the farmer and not penalizing them, but rewarding them. So how do you reward a farmer for adoption of new technology? The first thing a farmer doesn't want to do, he doesn't want to listen to you, okay? You don't want to change.
Don't tell me that.
Oh, come on. I mean, let's call it the John Deere epidemic. You have to incentivize them by making this technology free to them, okay? And through the free part, we help them increase their growth and decrease their pollution. And the reward to the public is that you're actually producing oxygen faster than a potential rainforest when this technology is linked up together. So as we're a planet going forward to look for solutions and populations going up and trees are going down, what do you need? You need sustainable, artificial, intelligent innovation. Mm-hmm. That's the basis of what we're doing here, providing reduction of pollution and advancement of oxygen back into the environment.
Can this technology do anything to salt water to make it safe to drink?
Yes, in terms of chlorination, when it goes through our system, if you add a little salt to it, you're creating a hyperchloride or chlorine dioxide. And that is an advancement that we've already proven that's in Abilene, Texas right now, and it's treated 5.5 billion gallons of water to date, and it's probably done another million today to help the fracking ponds produce a result where the leaching of, it's called iron oxide, and what happens is these fracking ponds start to contaminate the natural aquifers because they're not treated, it will get into the aquifer. So we're using a chlorination now that goes out like Mr. Bubbles to these big fracking ponds, and you treat 1/100th of the pond, and it dissipates the bad out of the fracking, so it prevents it in getting into the aquifers. Mm-hmm. So yes, we can help with the chlorination using this technology.
I'm thinking of a lot of different things. You said your father was involved in Pepsi in the early days, and I was, reading about the fourth phase of water and a lot of things in preparation for the show, for the panel discussion today. And this one question was, why does carbonation or the bubbles sitting in a glass get bigger over time?
So the four phases, I believe I'm going to answer it, but if I'm not, Merlin will chime in here. I mean, you have solid, that's ice. We all obviously know that.
Ice.
Liquid, which is bottled water that you buy off the shelf. Vapor, okay, when do you see that vapor? Well, it's when you condense and provide heat to it to get it to, like an example,
coffee.
Like with coffee.
Cup of coffee, yeah.
That is taking the water to what you call a micron level. A micron level is like saying 1,000,000 times smaller. You're contracting the bubble, and it's heating up, and it's rising, and that's the reason you see when it connects with the coffee ground, you see this vapor come off. So that vapor is 1,000,000,000 times smaller than what you would see. That's basically vapor. We're taking it to more or less what you call the fourth phase, or I'd like to say the fifth phase. 1,000,000,000,000 times smaller to get more penetration and use of it.
Wow. Yeah, I'm just thinking of that 1,000,000,000,000 times. It's
1,000,000,000,000 times smaller.
Obviously, a microscope's involved.
A couple of microscopes.
A couple of microscopes. Yeah. So I don't know how our time is looking. Do you want to demonstrate the water to the audience, or
We
do you want to?
we can get there. I'd like to cover one more point.
Yes, absolutely.
The next level of where we're going with this is helping with vaccines, okay? And I'm not saying the bad vaccines. I'm talking about producing yeast and advancing it to the point where it could be used in medical research. The fourth phase of water, the fifth phase of water, which people have not termed yet, allows you to add this water to increase molecules, okay? So simply adding it to yeast, it can help breweries, okay? It can help, but in terms of its value, is it can produce an advancement for food security. Producing yeast is when you, in the future, we're on a spaceship and we don't have protein, you actually need to produce yeast to make a protein bar. So that's food security.
I know that from making pizzas.
And making pizzas, absolutely. Help pizza all day long. Let's get back to basics here. But yeah, I'll demonstrate the water. I'm not sure if the camera can really see what we're doing here, but.
You know, while he's going over to do that, for me, this has really come full circle because in 1994, as I shared with you, Bernadette, and with Talbott, I produced the very first alkaline water in this country based on some Japanese technology and based on the electrolysis process that Talbott was talking about. I started the company in Boulder, and we produced a truckload for the Wild Oats Community Markets, now owned by Whole Foods. But that business, with that first truckload, it is now a $6 billion industry. And I share that simply because it's based on some of the principles that Talbott was talking about. So we can not only enhance water, which, you know, some people say, water's water. And that took me a few years to get past with a lot of people. But here again, Talbott is taking what I did to, you know, a 10x level. And I'm so delighted to reconnect with somebody who understands this, and it gives me hope for this water planet, because there's so many things we can do, not only for human health, but nature's health.
No, I appreciate the opportunity to show, but the actual light here and the way that bubble over there is in the dark, it does not allow the laser to be able to look at it on camera. I just started working with an Amish family that is very pronounced, and they produce so much cattle for McDonald's. And our hope is there just to get them, let's just say I think they would be satisfied probably with 2% to make this go nationwide. My goal is to give them 5% growth.
Yeah.
And that is something that could be used in poultry. The key thing with poultry is how do we get rid of all the biofilm and the bird flu and those viruses. And the same thing we're doing for providing disinfection with chlorination is a solution that every farmer needs to have there. When these issues happen, come to arise, you spray their animals off with what you call hyperchloric acid.
Well, you bring up a very important subject and one that's close to my heart, factory farming. I'm a PETA member. And
well, you don't want to come to Iowa then.
I know, but I'm not a hater, so, you know, to each his own, as long as you do it well and you treat the animals kindly. And so, you know, what do you think about factory farming? I feel that is where we made a big mistake as a world, is factory farming. And it's all, you know, it's all because of the greed. It is, and focusing more on profit than how we treat the animals. What do you guys think about factory farming and the implications of what it's done to our environment, all of the runoff?
Well, it's one of the reasons that I said earlier that Iowa is the best of the worst, is because we have more pig factory farms than any other state, and we emit more manure from those pig farms than 160 million people create in a year. And so where does all of that manure full of antibiotics and all of those chemical things that they're feeding because they want to keep their pigs healthy enough to at least get to slaughter? Yeah, it was totally a misdirection when it got started, and now that's what regenerative agriculture is about. It's transitioning away from something that's not natural, which are those CAFOs, whether you're growing pigs or beef or chickens or whatever, and we have some of the biggest farms in the state or in the country there. And so that's our challenge, quite frankly, because until we get that food healthy that we're growing, and you can't, I mean, I won't go into some of the issues. We all know these issues, so it's not like I'm saying something that we're not aware of. But anyway.
But you are what you eat.
Yes.
And so that animal needs to be healthy,
Yeah.
both, just it needs to be healthy.
So that's my explanation from Iowa, and I don't mean to be trashing Iowa. I love Iowa. I grew up there. It gave me a tremendous start in life. And the reason I'm doing what I'm doing is I just find what we're doing there unacceptable, and hopefully, and unfortunately, we're just a microcosm of what's going on the planet. So hopefully you'll join Iowa. It's ground zero to turn things around. We're then moving on to Colorado and California and now Tennessee to work with Talbott. But anyway, that's my explanation.
Okay. Talbott, your comments?
Well, factory farming is something that we can't find a solution in time for. The population's getting beyond control. So we have to look at how do we adjust and reduce the amount of antibiotics and the amount of nutrient loads that they're trying to get to increase the protein count, the availability of more meat, and do it in a way where the cow is healthier. He has a happier, or the poultry is healthier because they're not having to strive to eat so much or drink so much because their body is not advancing fast enough. So if we can provide a better growth without more steroids, that's a healthier animal. And factory farming, I would, like to consider that we find a better way of putting them down. That stress is what we eat, and you see an epidemic of obesity. Well, I believe it's a stress of the hormones that's coming off these animals and a lot of other ways.
Yeah, we eat more protein now than we ever have. When I was a kid, we ate like roast beef once a week, something like that. Ate a lot of spaghetti and salad and things like that. And we waste a lot of food in this country. That's another issue. That's an environmental issue. How many of those animals end up in the trash every day because people have become so accustomed to this abundance of food at all times that we have lost respect for where that food comes from.
And it ends up in the Mississippi River.
Yeah.
Going downstream. That's what you call a biological demand upon the environment. And yes, breaking that apart is part of it.
I think we need to consider all things. And again, communication is the key to success. And we do need to do things well. And that includes how we treat other living things and ourselves, right? Each other.
Yeah.
But we have 5 minutes. Talbott, Merlin.
Well, thank you, Merlin and Vern. This has been a pleasure, and I wish we had more of a time and audience, but it's going to come in, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, I could not be more delighted than to be on stage with this guy in terms of what he's doing with water, because it is a golden bullet, or excuse me, a silver bullet that is part of a golden bullet that we're putting together around some of the topics that we're talking about here today. And Bernadette, thank you. And Dalton, thank you for, I don't know if he's in the room. Yeah, he's in the room trying to hide.
Oh, there he is.
But he's responsible for getting us up here and kind of starting off this whole regenerative ag, future fields, farm and ranch. So delighted to be here. And I'll just say one other plug about a good thing about Iowa is that our motto is Fields of Opportunity. That's our state motto. And here we are talking about future fields, right? So anyway, the Fields of Opportunity, we've got a lot of chaos, got a lot of challenges, but as they say, never waste a good crisis. We are in a crisis.
We are.
We are in deep doo-doo, and if you haven't figured that out yet, then you're probably going to be sent to Mars, along with, the guy who's leading this whole thing, Elon Musk. But anyway, it is about future fields.
It is, and you've got a full length a motion picture coming out, right?
We are from Farm Hero. It has expanded substantially. I'm working with several different producers, and we're starting to work on a script for a full length movie, and who knows where it will go from there. We're going to be expanding the Farm Hero idea from just talking about farm heroes to talking about food heroes to talking about CPG heroes, which is the community package or the CPG, packaged goods. Drawing a blank on what the C stands for. But anyway, that's the Nestle's, the PepsiCo's, those types of companies that were getting more and more of attention from them because they want to move in this direction. They just don't know how they can make money at it. So our job, at least our two jobs, is to show them that they can make a lot of money doing the right things with water and soil and food and how they package it. Commercial packaged goods is what I was trying to come up with. So we're going to be in that, expanding into that market, so it's just not a couple of guys, a guy from Tennessee and a guy from Iowa trying to tell this story. But it's a very big and beautiful picture ahead. And as I heard a speaker say yesterday, he doesn't know if he has hope for the future, but he has determination. And I stood up and applauded him for that because I share that. I don't know. Hope, as they say, is not a strategy. So I don't know about hope, but I am determined, as I believe most of the people in this room and at this event, we're all determined. And if we come together and talk together, as Bernadette suggested, and talk to people in the audience that may have a different view from us and learn from them, then we could have a very bright future because, quite frankly, we need a new species. The Homo sapiens sapiens have done themselves in. And so we need to figure out how to correct the past in a positive way. Not that we have to make them wrong, because they were doing the best with what they knew. But at the same time, there is a better way, and I invite you to join the three of us, along with Trammell and Lanny down here, one of the great EarthX employees. I'm going to recommend him for a raise, by the way. But anyway, please join us. You're already on the train, and we have moved from the station. So let's come together in the back of the train and figure out how to do this.
Sounds fantastic. And EarthX TV, Farm Hero is on EarthX TV. I wanted to give a shout out for a couple of my favorite books that are all about the environment that I feel are very important for everyone in the world to read. The first one is from 1962, Silent Spring, Rachel Carson. She was a leader in the environmental movement. It's a very good read, and it's a fascinating book. And unfortunately, she passed away 18 months after she wrote it, but she took a lot of heat for writing that book. But she was the one that started it, again, a woman. And then another woman, Stephanie Seneff, wrote the book Toxic Legacy, all about glyphosate and what it's doing to our environment and to our health. Stephanie Seneff, she's a PhD, and the book is Toxic Legacy, and the other one, as I said, Silent Spring, Rachel Carson. Both great reads, full of information that if you are part of this movement, that's where I think you should start reading, because it gives you the history. So,
And Bern, I want to correct one statement I made. I'm not a pro-vax person, okay? I'm going to be open with that. When I said increase yeast and increasing medicine, yeast is used in producing insulin. Mm-hmm. I am dyslexic. I say things backwards at times.
I do. I think everybody
But
does a little bit.
I am not a pro-vax person.
Okay.
It just happens to be that we produce insulin from the yeast, so that is of great importance.
Okay.
And I'll leave you with one last thing. Tune your water, tune your life, and that's that simple. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah. Merlin, thank you. Talbott, thank you. Everyone, thank you for being here and listening.